As John and Mary drove up to the old mansion, they couldn't help but feel a chill up their spines. The foggy mist surrounding the mansion created an eerie atmosphere, and the full moon in the background added to the suspense. They cautiously made their way up the steps and through the front door, not knowing what they were about to discover. Little did they know that this would be the start of an unforgettable night, full of mystery and horror. John and Mary had been driving for hours when they came across an old abandoned town. They had never heard of this place before, but something drew them in. As they slowly drove through the cobblestone streets, they noticed the eerie silence that seemed to hang in the air. Every house and building was empty, and there wasn't a soul in sight. When they reached the town square, they spotted a large, abandoned mansion that stood in the center of the town. It was almost as if it had been placed there on purpose. The couple couldn't help but feel drawn towards it. John and Mary drove into the old abandoned town. The streets were empty and the buildings were crumbling. The sun was setting and the sky was painted with hues of orange and yellow. Despite the eerie atmosphere, John and Mary were filled with a sense of adventure and decided to explore the town. They started walking down the street, peeking into the windows of the abandoned buildings. As they walked, they noticed a mysterious old mansion tucked away at the end of the street. They decided to investigate further and approached the entrance. John and Mary decided to explore the old mansion and entered cautiously through a creaky and dilapidated door. As they entered, they were greeted by a musty smell and an eerie silence that seemed to echo in the air. They ventured further into the dark corridor, feeling like something was watching them. The walls were covered with cobwebs and the floorboards creaked with every step they took. They turned a corner and saw a staircase that seemed to go on forever. Up ahead, they could hear faint whispers and they knew they had to go up. With trembling hands, they climbed the staircase and eventually arrived at the top. As John and Mary explored the mansion, they soon made a shocking discovery. In the depths of the mansion, they found a strange laboratory filled with all sorts of eerie equipment. Frightened by what they saw, they quickly left the room, only to be followed by a mysterious figure. As they ran away, they could hear a voice calling out to them. They soon realized that the voice was coming from the laboratory and that it belonged to a spirit trapped in the room. John and Mary had been exploring the mansion for some time when they noticed some strange noises coming from the other end of the hall. As they slowly made their way closer, the noises started to get louder and more distinct. Suddenly, a group of hooded figures appeared from the shadows and advanced towards them. John and Mary were terrified and had no idea how to react. The hooded figures seemed to be some sort of ghostly creatures, as they were surrounded by a bright blue light. John and Mary soon realized that they were in the presence of some unwanted guests. Owen and Mary had finally reached the heart of the mansion. As they made their way through the dark and eerie hallway, they could hear the faint sound of ghosts whispering in the shadows. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness and blocked their path. It was a ghostly figure with an ethereal glow that surrounded him. He told them that they had trespassed into his domain and demanded that they leave at once. John and Mary were terrified, but they knew that if they were to make it out alive, they had to face the ghosts. John and Mary steeled their nerves and stepped forward. The ghostly figure demanded that they answer 3 questions in order to prove their worthiness to be in the mansion. John and Mary were able to answer the questions correctly, and the ghostly figure reluctantly allowed them to pass. As they continued to make their way through the mansion, they encountered more ghosts who were not as friendly as the first one. They had to use their wit and courage to outsmart the ghosts and eventually make it out of the mansion alive. John and Mary were finally facing the ghosts head-on. As they stood in the middle of the old mansion, they could feel the cold chill of fear run through their bodies. They were surrounded by the eerie whispers of the past and the spirits of those who had come before. John and Mary had to stay focused and brave as the ghosts were about to make their move. With a loud, thunderous roar, the ghosts surged forward, ready to take revenge on the living. John and Mary closed their eyes and held hands, ready to accept their fate. Suddenly, a bright light filled the room, blinding the ghosts and pushing them back. It was the power of love that had saved them. With one final embrace, John and Mary were able to defeat the ghosts and reclaim their freedom. They exited the mansion with a feeling of joy and relief, knowing that they had overcome their greatest fear. John and Mary had faced many challenges while in the haunted mansion, but they were able to use their wit and courage to overcome them all. Though they were scared and shaken by their experience, they were also able to take away a few lessons. They had learned to never take anything for granted and to always be mindful of their surroundings. By facing their fears, they had also gained a newfound appreciation for the world outside the mansion. They could now look back on their adventure and be thankful that they had made it out alive.